And my special effects guy said, I'm just going to take a shotgun and blow the head up, shoot. And so he laid down on the floor behind the chair with the shotgun pointing up the back of the head. And when the time came, he just shot it. It was, a fully loaded shotgun.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Awesome. First of all, Mr. Cronenberg, this is an honor, sir. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
So many of your films for decades, whether it's Videodrome, The Fly, Existence, obviously this film, The Shrouds, have studied that relationship between technology and biology. But both of those things are very much impacted by time. Technology has changed over 40, 50 years. Our bodies change over time. So I'm sort of curious, when you think about that theme that's been so important throughout your career, how has time impacted that? Because both biology and technology are two factors that are very much determined by time.
Well, I can tell you that over time, my hearing aids have gotten more sophisticated. Right now, I'm listening to you through new hearing aids that have an AI chip, for example. So I know exactly what you're thinking.
How's that working out for you?
I'm not sure I like it, but and I'm looking at you through plastic lenses because I had cataract surgery where they actually destroyed your original biological lenses and replace them with plastic lenses. So that's time in my body that has changed and incorporated the newest technology, which has also changed. Well, I think that's really perfect because technology is human. I mean, we think of it as being non-human, mechanical or electronic or something, but it's totally comes from our desire to extend ourselves, our voice, our eyes, our ears, our fists as weapons and so on. So I think it's sort of natural. I haven't really thought about technology as a sort of obsessive thing. I mean, with my right from the beginning, it was, well, first of all, as a film, movies are a very technological art form compared with painting or whatever, or writing. And so you're immediately dealing with technology. You're dealing with cameras, microphones, everything, always from the beginning. So that it was very natural for me to consider the body, the biology of the body, and the biology of technology.
Are each of your films kind of snapshots of a moment? If you had made The Shrouds in '83, or if you had made The Fly today, would they be more reflective of the times that they're in?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because as an artist, you have antennae that are maybe a little more sensitive than most people, or you pay more attention to them. So, but you're really just drawing in what you feel in the zeitgeist. What's happening around you. Like for Videodrome, which, for example, is considered by some to be prescient in terms of the internet and interactive TV.
The new flesh.
Yeah, and also the new flesh. But it was just what was in the air. I didn't feel I was inventing very much. And likewise in The Shrouds, the technology for The Shrouds, these strange, camera wrappings that the bodies are put into in the cemetery, that technology could exist right now. I mean, it does exist. If somebody really wanted to do that, it could easily be done.
Honestly, it's a very fascinating concept. There is a moment in The Shrouds that feature two characters in bed together, and they're maybe going to get intimate, and it ends up, there's a sound of a hip breaking, shattering. That's one of the most disturbing sounds I think I've ever heard in a film before. And it was fantastic. And I want to use that to kind of as a springboard to sort of talk about sexuality as a theme in some of your movies. I remember there's the monologue in Shivers where she says that even dying is an act of eroticism. And obviously Crash yielded a whole conversation about what could be erotic and what's not. Have you ever been surprised yourself at what some of your characters have ended up finding sexual or erotic in your films?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, Crash was written by J.G. Ballard, who was not afraid to explore those kind of strange themes, and I certainly felt, reacted positively to all of that. But your characters, I mean, as much as people have talked about, the biographical background of the Shrouds, the death of a wife and so on, you are creating fictional characters when you write. And you want that because you want your characters to push you around. The characters come alive when they start to say things you didn't expect them to say. And they want to do things that you didn't expect them to do. Sometimes you don't want them to do that, and then they insist on it. So, in other words, if your characters don't surprise you, then you're creating something that's kind of dead. You really want it to come alive. And so, yeah, my characters have surprised me very much. Several in the Shrouds in particular.
The Shrouds is, I'm going to springboard off of that. Such an amazing study of grief and what grief does to people, and the physical toll that it can have on people. And I'm sort of curious if you'll have fun with me. So many of your characters have not made it to the end credits through your films. I'm sort of curious, what's the most you've ever grieved one of your own characters? Have you ever felt the loss of a character, whether it was a character dying on set or in the edit or seeing it projected on the big screen for the first time?
Yeah, it's when you're making the movie, no, you're not grieving. You're just wanting to make sure they have a good cinematic death if they're going to die. But later, when you're seeing it, it's true. It's once you see it with an audience and you're no longer in control, you're just a member of the audience basically, that's when you start to have a full emotional reaction to it. And especially if it's being shown at some place like the Cannes Film Festival, which is 2,600 people, it's a huge audience, and a lot of pressure and so on. And that's where you almost the first time you can really react to your own movie as a movie. And so you will have the reactions that your audience will have. You will grieve the characters who will be grieved by the audience, and you'll be surprised by the humor of some of the other characters and all of that.
Speaking of humor, this movie yielded one of the biggest laughs I've had in a long time, which was a first, I won't ruin it, but a first date in a place that he takes a woman to on a first date. Going back to the grief, what of all the characters you've lost in your career, speaking of having that moment where you're experiencing it, is there one more than other that you're surprised kind of hit you a little harder than you expected?
Maybe the twins in Dead Ringers. Really.
Yeah, why is that?
Because it has a very strong theoretical underpinning, twins, identity, but the differences and the similarities and so on. And you can get really wound up into, I did anyway, sort of being true to what twinness is and how strange it is that, the world could exist without twins being possible, identical twins we're talking about. And so when, I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody, but yeah, the two twins die at the end. So yeah, it's, and Jeremy was so good. Jeremy Irons was so good playing both twins. And I did feel that we managed to figure out how to twin them without it being obvious, so that the audience would actually forget that they were played by the same actor.
You honestly really do, and I know that Jeremy Irons is one man, but you really do.
Yeah.
That perfectly leads into my next question, because Diane Kruger giving multiple performances in this film is absolutely brilliant. And that's something that you've dealt with before, obviously, Jeremy Irons and Dead Ringers, and to a certain degree, I kind of feel like Viggo Mortensen kind of has to play two parts in A History of Violence internally.
Yep.
And then very briefly, Mr. Ironside, by the end of Scanners, kind of has to be a different person at the end.
Yep.
I'm sort of, what are the challenges of directing an actor different ways for different characters?
Well, I really don't. I mean, it's there in the script, really the script is the director first, and that's where the dialogue is, and if the dialogue sounds different, coming from a different person, that really helps the actor to sort of individualize the character that he or she is playing. So it starts with the dialogue, really, and I, as a director, I direct them like they're two different people. You know, I don't direct them like they're the same person. So, but it's most of it is up to it's casting. I often say to film students, you know, your film course will not probably teach you anything about casting, but it's a huge part of directing, is being able to cast and be able to anticipate how the actor's going to work with this particular character in this dialogue.
So I'm glad we're getting that Oscar category next year, because casting is, we're getting...
Well, and it's no joke, but of course, I would say that the casting is, like everything in a film, is collaboration between the casting person, who will suggest actors perhaps you hadn't thought of, but then as a director, it's your decision to decide whether you're going to go with that person. And then, of course, casting gets complicated because it can involve passports, of all things. Why that? Because if my films are often Canada, European co-productions. And so I have to, everybody has to come from either Canada or Europe. So that means you can't have American actors. I had to fight to get Guy Pearce, who's Australian, into the Shrouds.
Yeah.
So casting is a strange black art. It involves all kinds of things that most people wouldn't think of. And ultimately, that is whether your movie lives or dies, you know, is on how good that actor is in that role.
Well, the casting for all your films has a history of being brilliant. Going back to the duality, is there a difference between working with Jeremy Irons playing two literal different people versus someone like Viggo Mortensen, who kind of has two people inside of him? Like how working with Viggo on History of Violence, what was that like as he sort of, you know, is sort of keeping that second person hidden inside?
Well, once again, I mean, it's his instinct first, how much of the other Viggo, the other character, is shown, and then it's me sort of guiding him. I don't micromanage, you know. I don't say the line this way or say the line that way. Most competent actors would be quite upset if you sort of gave them line readings, although it has happened. But that's a whole other thing. Rarely, but no, it's really I have the distance, you know, that the actor doesn't have, of course, and so they're depending on me to guide them if they go off the rails a little bit this way or that way. But otherwise, it's really the actor's instinct. I mean, it's a powerful thing.
That's amazing. You mentioned this film being personal, and I want to sort of bring up a story I'd always heard that after, was it Shivers? I think Martin Scorsese said that he was afraid to meet you.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I'm sort of curious over your career. One, I'd love to know the real story behind that, if that's true. But over your career, which film of yours had the most impact on how people approached you or people interacted with you? And then an extension of that, following this film, as personal as this film is, how this film might impact how people approach you after they see it.
Well, Shivers was sort of a very low-budget Canadian film. I think it cost $180,000 and was rather successful and quite influential, as it turned out. There are some things in Alien that are quite derivative of things that were in Shivers, this little tiny film. And I think that's how people perceived me. It was the first professional film I'd made underground films before, but they didn't get much distribution. So Shivers, which was called They Came From Within in America, was really my calling card. And yes, Marty did. When I finally first met him, and he said, you know, I saw Shivers, and you know, I was really afraid to meet you. And I said, you're the guy who made Taxi Driver. I'm afraid to meet you. You know, it was kind of funny. But Scanners, though, was the sort of the movie that really broke through, because it was the #1 film in North America for 1 week only, but still, once again, a very low budget Canadian sci-fi movie. Most people hadn't heard of me at that point. And after that, and The Exploding Head was still referred to, you know. So that was really a key moment in terms of my presence internationally.
I love that. Well, that perfectly leads into, I promised you some nerdy questions going through your filmography, you don't mind.
Was that a promise or a threat?
It was a hope more than anything.
Okay.
You know, I'd love to talk about a couple of moments throughout your filmography, one, of course, being The Exploding Head and Scanners. I'd love to know, when you put pen to paper and wrote that, did you know how you were going to pull it off at the time?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you can't worry about that. If you worry about, I would like to do this, but it's probably going to be too expensive, so I won't write it. No, you're dead if you do that. You write the screenplay, and you put everything in it. You give it everything you've got, everything you want to see, and then you worry about it later. And if you have to haul back on some of the, let's say, effects, then you have to negotiate that with your producers and the money people and yourself. But you don't do it at the script phase. So yes, I wrote it as it came to appear in the movie, but I had no idea how we were going to do it. I mean, and that was pre-CG. Nobody was doing computer graphics then. It was pre-digital, so it was going to be some physical thing. And we had Dick Smith working on it, and he, famous for The Exorcist and special effects and so on. And he made a beautiful head of the actor, casting it. It looked perfectly realistic. And the first time we tried it, we put explosives inside the head, along with like dog food and a bunch of other stuff, and blood, of course, fake blood. So we're shooting it. We had maybe 2 cameras. For me that was good. Big. I usually just shoot 1 camera. Maybe we might even have had 3 cameras. 1 going slow motion, 1 not. And so, okay, time to do it. We press the button, it explodes, and you can't see anything because all of the stuff that was in the head vaporized, and it became steam. So it suddenly was a cloud of steam, and you saw nothing. So we said, okay, we've only got 1 more head. We had 2 made. How are we going to do it? Okay, well, we still need all the stuff in the head. And my special effects guy said, I'm just going to take a shotgun and blow the head up, shoot. And so he laid down on the floor behind the chair with the shotgun pointing up the back of the head. And when the time came, he just shot it. It was a fully loaded shotgun. And that's how it happened, and that looked great.
It looks amazing.
It looks amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You mentioned a time before computer effects. I don't know if there's better makeup ever put on film than the deservedly so Oscar-winning makeup for The Fly.
Yeah.
And I would love to talk about sort of how you guys sort of worked on the evolution of what Mr. Goldblum was going to look like as he progressed through the film, and at a time where like computer effects were not there to help. If you wanted a thing, very similar to what John Carpenter did with The Thing, like if you wanted something to happen on camera, it had to happen on camera.
It had to happen, and it had to be physically there.
Yeah.
And you had to be able to lift it up and touch it and move it around. And a lot of people are nostalgic for those days, but to me, it's whatever ends up on film is the reality. And I welcomed the advent of CG because it meant we could tweak things. It's usually a combination of physical effects and CG for what I do. I know that some of the Marvel movies and stuff, it's wall-to-wall CG, certain aspects of it. But it's, once again, a collaboration. I mean, it's Jeff was the first actor I approached to do The Fly who was not afraid to wear makeup all over his face. There were several other actors who said, but you're going to have prosthetics all over my face and I won't be able to act through the makeup. And they turned it down because of that. They felt that they couldn't really perform. And Jeff felt confident that he could perform through the makeup, which he did. But there you see, there's a collaboration right there between makeup and actor.
It's unbelievable. And it's such a brilliant performance. Gina Davis, how she didn't get an Oscar nomination for
Well, she was
that.
pretty good.
She was incredible.
Yeah.
A couple more I'm going to try to fly through because I know we're running short on time. I think the diner scene in A History of Violence is one of the most perfect examples of tension on even before he swings the coffee pot. It's such a tense moment. And I'm sort of curious I know a lot of that is you talk about collaboration. It's the writing and it's the editing and it's the performances. On set, can you feel the tension? Because I know it's a lot of starting and stopping, action and cut.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's a matter of experience. I think you asked me about what would happen if I had directed something 10 years before. Well, actually, I wanted to make, let's say, Dead Ringers 10 years before I made it. and couldn't get the financing. It would have been a different movie, and it's probably good that because it's all a matter of experience ultimately as a director. You're used to the starting and stopping. You're used to shooting out of sequence, and yet having it make emotional and physical sense. So it comes with experience, really. And so when I'm on the set, and with the actors too, they're very experienced actors. They've done all this kind of stuff before, and so you know what's involved. And but it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. And if you're in over your head on the first time in a movie, it can be pretty terrifying, I can tell you.
That scene flows together so well. Viggo Mortensen told me a great story one time where he said he for the fight scene in Eastern Promises in the bathhouse. He thought that you guys were going to be able to get it done in one day. And he said, by the end of the day, he said, David said, we got to come back and shoot a little bit more. And he said the next day, he was so covered in bruises that not only did they obviously have to put the tattoos back on him, they had to cover all the bruises that he had received from the day before.
Yeah, and before that, he had his own tattoos, so we had to cover the tattoos, then cover the bruises, then put on the new. Yeah.
What was day 2 of shooting that fight scene like?
No, I can't really. Honestly, I can't really remember. I mean, it's just normal. To me, it's just normal. You get your days or you don't, and once again, another part of the art of directing that's not very well known is scheduling. You have to be realistic. You have to say to your producers and your production managers, this is not realistic. I cannot do this in half a day. It's going to take the whole day. And that's, once again, part of being a professional.
It's you make it look easy. I'll cut you loose on this. You mentioned earlier in the interview about that moment where you get to actually watch your film together and you get to sort of feel the things that the audience are feeling. There have been several moments in your films, for many of us, where we sometimes have to watch it like this. Have you ever had a moment where you had it's your own movie, you were there on set, you know what goes into it, but even then, in that moment, you've had to sort of maybe just put the hands up just a little bit?
If I ever close my eyes, it would be because I screwed up a scene.
So you've never closed your eyes then?
Probably. Well, that's nice to say. No. I mean, it's listen. I've had people faint in The Fly in particular. Every audience there would be somebody who would go down because of some scenes some moments in The Fly, and I think it was Al Pacino at one point when he heard about that. He said, "Wow, that's real movie making. That's real movies."
As a director, is that when you just go, I got it?
Well, I don't need people to faint, but if they're gonna, it's okay with me.
Well, Mr. Cronenberg, that is a perfect place to end. I just want to say, sir, just as a movie fan, thank you for everything you've given us. Your films were, as a movie fan, whenever I was starting to break out and discover movies that I liked that weren't necessarily put in front of me by friends and family, whenever I started exploring the local video store, yours were the ones that made me go, oh, I love movies, and I love movies because of this and this and this, and it's because of your continued talent and everything that you've given us over your career. So I just want to say thank you so much, sir.
That's very kind.
I really do appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right, so that was just a warm up, and now we're going to hit record. Now we're going to.
I didn't say anything I meant then.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.